What? Andy the Ungor surrounded by witch elves? They look a bit Remington-like. What could this mean? Could it be witch coven related? Or something even more sinister? Stay tuned to find out.
It's the Andy and Remington Steel Show on your screens tonight. It's the Andy and Remington Steel Show for your home delight. We're talking about Age of Sigmar and anything else that is cool. Talking about Warhammer Fantasy, it's easy to learn the rules. Andy and Remington, Andy and Remington, Andy and Remington Show.
Welcome one and all. It's time for episode 134 of the Andy and Rem Show. And move the episode thumbnail. You prepared sight. Andy and Remington seems to be looking at his trousers at the moment.
Hello? Hey, hello everybody. Nice to see you again.
Yes.
Okay, Andy. Oh, my blinds are not done.
Let's wait patiently until Remington sorts out his blinds, shall we?
They're going up.
Well, pull it the other way. Batzuka says, gotta love Rem talking to us like we've broken into his home for breakfast.
Oh, can you live with that?
I think we can live with the state of your window and blinds at the moment. So I don't think we need to worry too much. Brad says, trimmed up the beard, ? Is he? Which one of us is he talking to, though?
I think there's only one trimmed beard here with sort of gentleman's tash.
I don't know. We're both looking a bit trimmed in the facial hair department.
That's better. You can't see the blinds. Okay, cool. Yeah, I've got this little thing going there.
So Brad was talking about me, not in fact your attempt at facial hair.
I'm trying to send you a picture on Discord of my latest miniature I painted. That's what's distracted me there.
Yes, folks, if you weren't familiar with this show, then Remington is known for sending me all the images that he wants to be displayed on the show, roughly 3 minutes before we go on the air, which is not nearly enough time for me to put them all into the appropriate places. Oh look, you fixed the blinds.
Welcome everybody to the Andy and Rem Show.
What a start to the show. And as you can see, shall we just talk about this before we do anything else? Because Witch Coven has barely been on the air for 2 weeks, and GW are just all over it, ripping it off left and right. Look at this. Covens of Blood. Hardback. Pre-order. So clearly...
Did they spell covens right? Isn't there an R in there? Covern.
There is not, except when you pronounce it. So, let's see. It's written by 3 different people. So that's how eager they were to cash in on the opportunity to be kind of riding the coattails of Witch Coven. They immediately... They had 3 authors immediately to jump on this.
Written by committee. It can't be that good, can it? I mean, because Witch Coven comes just from the mind of Remington. I don't need it. We don't need a committee to write a great story.
Shall I read the description here and see if it tickles you at all? The daughters of Cain bleed the realms dry in the name of their god across 3 linked stories that show both the elves' skill at war and dedication to their bloody-handed master. Has it
Nah,
grabbed you yet?
nah,
Not
not
enough
really.
ungors
Can't
and
remember what you.
loincloths.
I can't remember anything of what you just said.
Well, let's try this. Read it because dive into a trio of blood-soaked stories that intertwine to form a novel that showcases the deadly talent and vicious cruelty of Marathi's elven warriors.
Better.
The story. Rising from the gloom-shrouded cults of Ulgu, the empire of the Daughters of Cain now dominates the realm of shadow. These matriarchal witch elves are graceful masters of death who revel in spilling blood and whose opposition to chaos borders on mania. Proud governors of their own ruthless agendas, it is their devotion to Cain, the ancient elven god of murder. The daughters seek to prove above all, and alongside it, the favour of his high priestess, Marathi. To this end, Cainite would bleed the realms dry in dedication to her cause.
Hmm. Can you build an empire with just one sex?
In the realms, you probably can because it's
I'm not.
magic.
I'm not sure about that. I mean, it's kind of cool, man. An empire of women, but how do they procreate? Do like witch elves just appear from cauldrons of blood? Do they have? I think they have sort of slave men, don't they? They emasculate them. I'm not sure.
I don't know.
It's
Well,
worth,
if we go
worth
by what's
diving into.
represented in the miniatures, then I'd be interested to know how for example, the old world fantasy dwarves reproduced. Wasn't there only one lady dwarf miniature ever?
Yeah, but that's a shame. There should have been more. Definitely should have been more. Like, you get halfling. You get halfling women, don't you? As models, see plenty of them. Not enough Empire women. Not enough Cities of Sigmar females. You know. But yeah, I love it. Really, I love it. I think witch elves should come in more shapes and sizes, though. Not just anemic looking skinny things. They should be different sizes. It'd be kind of better, more realistic, more characterful, right?
Well, you
Less
see that
generic.
in one of the new Blood Bowl teams, don't you? But
Do
not
you?
not not in the women. But
Uh-huh.
you see kind of the plump, wealthy, elite barons, whatever their team's called. We'll get to that because we're going to look at some of the new Blood Bowl stuff.
It's good though. I mean, generally, anything that's fleshing out the mortal realms with some of the smaller factions and novels and stuff is good in my book. Right? Hopefully, there's no Stormcast in there. You know.
And hopefully there's no Ungor in there who has to battle against the Coven, because that would be infringing on numerous, if not copyrights, then at least kind of a loose intellectual property, I think.
So, Witch Coven is our invention, isn't it? It's our fantasy adventure starring Andy the Ungor, and that's who you saw on the cover photo. Andy, you do look rather dashing as an Ungor, I must
I do
admit.
actually.
I would like that as a model with your exact head on
The
that
exact
body.
head with my current facial hair, or the previous
Yeah.
facial hair that was down to there, which is more Beastman like.
Yes. Yes. I want that as a model. I want that as a T-shirt. I want that as a flag. Um, I think it's phenomenal, and hopefully you guys do too, because you'll be hearing a lot more about Witch Coven later on in the show because we're going to be having part 3.
You will. Now then,
Anyway, this book
sure
looks good. Looks good.
well, I'm sure you'll read it and tell us how good it is and how far it infringes on your property. Next up. So, now, Remington sent me this screen grab. You may notice there's something else on the screen there as well, which I did ask him if he wanted to remove it beforehand, and he said no, just lay it all bare like an Ungor. So that's what we're going to do. So let's review the personal message at the top first. So, this is Schmoogles Boogles has told Remington that he has extra comfort pillow today. Okay, so I'm sure that's relevant to the stock market in some way. But if we scroll down,
Message was sent at the exact moment I took a screenshot.
so what's this? This looks almost like an all-time high to me. This is too
This
good
is
to be true.
it's a phenomenal, Andy. Yesterday, just before 12 o'clock, Games Workshop just went ballistic, and it reached almost £120 a share. And if you just scroll down, Andy, this means for us fans of my journey here, I was 94% up on my investment. I bought 10 shares, costing £62 each, approximately, averagely. And I was on for a return of £581 at that moment. But did I sell? Did I sell is the question. Lesser minds, lesser hearts, weaker hands may have sold. But no, I kept strong and I took a screenshot and then let it alone. But barely a few hours later, this happened.
Dun dun dun. Well, first of all, there's no message at the top this time, but look at that. It's red, so that means it's bad for a
Oh,
start. What's going on here? Look
oh
at
man.
this.
I tell you what happened. After 12 o'clock yesterday, a new vaccine was announced for the COVID. And what's all this got to do with Games Workshop, who, by the way, have forecast better than ever sales for this quarter, better than last quarter. So you'd think, why is the stock plummeted? But the vaccine um, produced by a company called Pfizer with a German company was announced, and suddenly all the stay-at-home stocks and the tech stocks went plummeting down, and there was a redistribution of wealth, and it went into all the boring Trumpy stocks like bank stocks and shops and stuff like that. And Games Workshop suffered, and look, I lost almost 30% of my return only in one day, and it's taken me back to this time over a month ago.
Are you
And
regretting not bailing out while the getting was good?
yeah, part of me, part of me. But
Is
then
that part of you your wallet?
I think if hindsight's everything, I could have probably sold them all and then bought back in if it goes under £100 a share. Um, so that's a possibility, and then maybe I'd be able to afford 11 shares, so I'd have a one share profit. Yeah, that maybe right. Who knows? But yeah. So a vaccine's been announced, and of course that means the market looks forward. It doesn't think about today. It thinks about 2, 3, 4, 5 months down the line. And airlines and cruise lines are back in potential business from being dead on their arse. So unfortunately, Games Workshop seems to stay at home stock, but I think that's very short sighted because I think they've done amazingly well despite the fact they haven't had their shops open consistently for the last 9 months. So, I mean, you tell me, is the hobby going anywhere? Is it expanding? Is it getting better? The fundamentals of Games Workshop are still phenomenal. It's got no debt, loads of cash on hand, expanding, loads of IP, new model lines coming each day, a loyal following. So that's why I didn't sell, because the fundamentals are great. And I think this time next week will have gone back up. I'm not saying it will have reached the same high, but I think it will go up a few quid for sure. That's my prediction.
You're staying
All
on
right.
board for the steady climb back up.
Yeah, I think it was just an emotional redistribution of wealth there. Because you know what? One thing I've learned about this in my journey is that wealthy people, all they do is move money around. That's all it is. You get to a certain level of wealth, and all you're doing is moving money from one asset to another. And do you know what I mean? Whether you call that working or not, I don't know. But
Well, I certainly wouldn't.
no, well, well, you're ki-
And I,
you're in your job. You're moving a box from one area to another, aren't you? If you just imagine that's money, you're doing nothing different than what
well,
rich people are doing.
yeah, but they're moving things that kind of don't exist because that money is never, a lot of it is never really into circulation, as it were. It's in a big
Mhm.
pile somewhere, imaginary pile. It's moved to a different imaginary pile, and then they
Andy,
make money off that.
Andy, you're exactly right. I mean, look, this red grape juice carton I'm holding, I paid £1 for this, but it was reduced from £1.50. So next week it will be £1.50 because Asda said so. So anything is worth whatever people think it's worth, right? You can look at the fundamentals of it. Well, it costs this much to produce, and it's available here, here, here. But, yeah, at the end of the day, you're right. Value is just perception. But it is very real. I mean, if I'd sold that money, if I sold those shares, I would have gained almost £600 out
But
of
you
thin air.
didn't. So at the
I
moment, it's
didn't.
theoretical wealth.
I didn't because I made a promise to all I would hold them for at least a year. So I've got to hold them until sort of late January-ish,
Owen
and
says,
then
did you check the use by date? Oh.
that's a good point. 10th of January 21.
Oh, there you go, you're fine. Gotta be careful when things are reduced. Okay, so let's look at some more stuff while the chat is flying in left and right. So start collecting Daughters of Cain. Now,
Mm,
the start collecting boxes in general are an
mhm.
interesting concept. Usually there's a bit of a saving attached to them, which at the time was a fresh innovation by GW standards. They hadn't done that for
Yeah.
many a
Yeah,
year.
can't complain about that, can we, Andy? I mean, do you remember when, 5 witch elves were £25, 5 metal witch elves?
What do you get in this one? So, get Cauldron. You get several. Want to talk us through this, Mr. Remington, and your witch elf
Uh,
expertise?
yes, you get 5 Melusai or Melusai, so they can either have bows or they can have, sort of spears. I'd say face value, if you were to buy these at retail separately, you'd get the, Cauldron of Blood slash Blood Rack Shrine, and you get the sort of, you get the witchy elf queen, formerly known as Helibron, and you get another witch elf holding a cup, and you get these 2 witch elves sort of guarding. God, you're making my head spin, Andy, moving that thing. You get the 2 guard elves, and you get, what's it called? A Gorgon and a mirror. Plus those. So I think retail, that would usually pay about 77 quid, something like that, £75. So you've got an instant saving there of £20.
So, the start collecting boxes are one thing. It's just a saving, and they just bundle up some models into a brand new start collecting box for you. Just seems nice and convenient. However, kind of the topic of the show tonight, repurposing models. So not necessarily when they do this and put them in a start collecting box, but when they pass off those old models as something new. For example, they'll put them into a boxed game. It's kind of mini games that they've come out with over the recent years, built around certain models that already exist. Like there was the 40k board game with assassins, for example, where all the assassins came in the box. But they already existed, so they didn't have to make any new models for that game. How do you feel about that as a concept? When they take models that already exist and just turn them into a new product
Oh,
at,
like this?
at very low cost, presumably. So beyond the start collecting box, when it's a full-on new product, but with old miniatures in it.
I mean, is it aesthetic or is it because they overproduced some of the miniatures and they kind of wanna get rid? I mean, that's
I would assume they have a big whiteboard somewhere at GWHQ, and whenever a particular range has underperformed, or a particular couple of miniatures within that range, they go up on the whiteboard, and someone sits there staring at it with a notebook, putting down ideas for a kind of a concept for a game or a mini game, if you will, for something that could use those models in it, so they can grind back some of that investment they're losing.
yeah, and also if you look at the front of the box, you got the Melusai with the bows, which, like in the rules are not as good or not as not as used as much as the ones with the spears, so maybe they're encouraging people to buy the sort of weaker models, and then they change the rules to make them better.
That is another point actually. In some of the boxes, you don't necessarily get the choices that the competitive player take. So another way to shift some of those.
I think it's a decent deal though. I mean, you get this box and you get some you know, Witch Elves or Sisters of Slaughter, and you've got, I don't know, is that 1,000 points? Maybe it's nearly that if you count all the heroes. It's not bad, right? So for a couple of £100, you could get a full army. Bearing in mind, if you did that with Chaos Dwarves, you're looking at £500. So
Stu says, like Gore Chosen. Yes, Gore Chosen is a good example. The miniatures already existed and they just released a product to go alongside them to justify the expense of creating the molds for those four. It was four, wasn't it? Those four
yeah,
individual heroes.
good models then. I don't see a problem with it. Do you think there should be just unique models for every box then?
Well, we always have kind of this discussion when we're looking at a new product and see that all the models already exist, and we're kind of disappointed whenever that happens. I feel. I think if we went back and watched all the segments on those particular products, then there would be a tone of being underwhelmed, I think.
I mean, would you like to see some new Daughters of Cain units? Because we do have a new hero, don't a heroine, sorry. We have a new heroine, Snake Woman.
I don't have an
Um,
issue with it in the start collecting boxes. I only have a slight issue when it comes to them launching a new product, a new game system, if you will, that only contains already existing miniatures. I think all of those should have at least something new in there to sink your
yeah,
hobby
I mean, for
fangs into.
sure. I mean, we look at the range. We've been spoiled. When you look at the range of Stormcast, and then you look at the range of Idoneth Deep King or Daughters of Cain, there's nowhere near as many unit choices, right? So, I mean, I'd like to see some more units for sure. Yeah, I
You
don't
know,
know what. I don't know
do you know what
what.
they
I
would
have
have
to think
done
about it.
in years gone by for something like Gore Chosen? They would have had the miniatures already out there, just existing out in the world, and then in White Dwarf, they would have put on the front cover Gore Chosen, free game inside, and you get a little piece of card for the arena and the rules so you could use those four miniatures that already exist. So you'd have to buy them separately. But it seems like those kind of ideas, before it was like a free, cheeky little novelty, perhaps you could play it in a Games Workshop store and then.
Sure, I had Gore Chosen. It's quite good. I played it with my students when I was working at a school. Yeah, it's quite enjoyable. But it seems like a bit of a child's play game now because they sort of leveled up, and then they went sort of Silver Tower, and then they went Necromunda, and then they've got bigger, better, more complex games now, haven't they? There's something like Gore Chosen. I don't know if they'd go back to that sort of really simple format. I think that was a tester and a very cheap way because there's only 4 models in it, right?
But all a lot of those other products you mentioned sell a lot of add-ons though, whereas Gore Chosen is just a standalone product
Yeah,
with very little investment probably to get Gore Chosen off the ground since they already had the models.
yeah. Well, it's fair to say, I mean, would it have been like 4 years ago or something that GW announced there was gonna be, a subdivision team working on, the sort of side hustle games of GW, right? Bringing back bringing back stuff like Necromunda and Warhammer Quest and it's fair to say they've done pretty good, right? Um, Warcry, yeah, Underworlds, Shadespire, done really well because people like the skirmish. They wanna start small and be able to actually paint a band of miniatures and before moving on.
I think we should put those games into a different category though, and Owen says they did that with 40k with the Scouts and Tyranids. Yes, they did actually. Models already existed. What did they call that one? Something
Uh,
Patrol?
Blackstone Fortress? No?
I think
No.
Blackstone Fortress is different.
Alright.
But it does beg the question, if GW came out with any weird combo of miniatures, which ones in particular would appeal to you? So for me, obviously a Witch Coven set would be pretty near the top. So if it was a bunch of Witch Elves, an Ungor, what else would you have in there? You'd have a Cygor,
Oh, man, that'd be
few
so good.
Beastmen.
A special, cauldron, maybe a different. sort of cauldron, right? Herdstone. Yeah, it'd be amazing, man. That would just fly off the shelves. But I mean, how would we beef up the Beastman force? You know,
Would you
is Andy
need
the
to though?
Ungor?
Because they've got Andy the Ungor.
It would just be such a phenomenal board game, wouldn't it? You could throw in a couple of like GW forests in there, right? Have some new sceneries, like have like the Witch Coven Temple of Cain or something.
The Witch Coven Mega Box, you could have that for, and just the base game, you would just get the Witch Elves and an Ungor probably. And for
Yeah,
the Forest of Rem as well, you'd obviously have to get some miniature to represent Remington the Travelling Bard. Remington the Everchosen, obviously they'll just put Arcane in the box and probably give you a replacement head for him.
Owen Lee says Devoted of Sigmar with battalion rules. Devoted of Sigmar would have been an amazing box, right? You know, they could have relaunched the Altar of Sigmar, the flagellants, a flagellant. Do you say flagellant or flagellant? How do you say
I
it?
would say Flagellant.
Flagellant. Just a strange word, isn't it? A flagellant hero. You
Or if
know,
it's
a couple
Nurgle,
of
the Flatulent Hero, of course.
yeah, you have a couple of warrior priests in there. I mean, warrior priests have just like disappeared, haven't they? They're not. You know what I mean? They were awesome. I mean, that was like warrior priest was a real sort of Games Workshop thing, wasn't it? It was like the main character. Do you remember in that video game, Warhammer video game? Can't remember what it's called. Brilliant game. Well, the um the advert for it was amazing. Where he's
Which
walking through
game
the
was it?
forest. He's walking through the forest, and it's just like him and a band of battle-weary Empire soldiers, and then
Was
they
it
get
Mark of
attacked.
Chaos?
Yes, Warhammer Mark of Chaos, phenomenal. Oh, well, I mean, what happened to that? I mean, you know, that was like the Warhammer, wasn't it?
Well, I think
That was
the lowly warrior priest has kind of been outshone by all the Stormcast priests that fill the same job, but they're shiny.
there you go. There you go. So, yeah, what else have we got? We got some more. I mean, that's an old start collecting box, though, isn't it? That or is that a new one?
I'm not sure about this one, but I thought this was a nice example of a start collecting box and
Oh,
one
okay.
that you could sink your teeth into.
Yeah.
But
Well,
while we move on to something else, audience, if you've got suggestions for repurposing of old models into a new box, then drop them in the chat and we will assess them. So whether that's just a start collecting, in which case we'll say, well, that's not very exciting, or if it's a full-on mini game, then tell us which miniatures go in it and a bit of a gist of the theme, and we'll give it a quick review. And I expect to see at least 4 down there in a few minutes. I'll be very disappointed otherwise. We're only
The
on 9
Gloomspike
likes for this
Gitz one
episode.
is the Gloomspike Gitz one's pretty cool. You get 3 trolls. You get you know, Moonclan Grot hero, a loon boss, and you get 10 squigs with a couple of herders. Pretty decent.
By the way, before we move on as well, if anyone didn't watch the last Vermintide stream, we finally did it. Finally finished Vermintide 1.
Should show some highlights on the show, Andy. That'd be good.
That would require effort to set up, though. So we finished the Castle Drachenfels on hard mode every single mission, which was quite challenging, shall we say.
That's good. So we're going to start Vermintide 2 now, aren't we? That's going to be good.
Yes, that's going to grapple people by the eyeballs, I think, seriously, because it's much newer. There's much bigger audience out there for Vermintide 2 content, I imagine. So people are very excited, and we should be able to start that probably at a weekend coming up very soon, I imagine. People can look forward to that.
David Kitely says, I'm leveling up on Vermintide 2 at the moment. He's getting a head start on us.
Good.
Are you going to stick with Saltspire, Andy?
I think I probably am.
Uh-huh.
Vermintide 2 adds a bit of spice though, because you can change your subclass around a bit, can't you?
Well, you can't straight away. You have to sort of grow
Yes.
into it. You know.
What level are you on Vermintide 2 at the moment?
I can't remember. I might have leveled up into. a not a troll slayer yet. I might be an iron breaker. I can't remember, but I've got like a little flame gun. It's pretty cool. I can't remember. It's been so long since I played it. So what's that? Heirs of Grimnir CD.
Well, so Heirs of Grimnir. Now, this I don't know whether this is. I think this is the author's name under there. The same
Yeah,
guy that did the Gotrek. The what was his?
yeah, these
What was
guys,
it
man,
called?
they
Realm
bang out.
Slayer.
Yeah, they bang out the books like you won't believe, man. These guys must be just sat writing all day.
Yeah. So if you're into your Fire Slayers, then you can get this audio drama. Running time 1 hour 12 minutes. It doesn't have Brian Blessed in this one, which is obviously very disappointing. But I'm sure it has lots of wonderful humans in there regardless.
How do you get a job as like one of the voice actors? I mean,
I don't
apart from
know,
if
because
you're
if I
already
knew,
available.
then I'd be trying to do it right now.
You need an agent, Andy. I mean, can I recommend Mickey Genver?
No.
No, okay.
You could recommend a real agent. I thought Mickey Genvo was supposed to be managing Remington Industries.
Uh, Managing Remington Industries. I think that's a point you should get across to her.
It seems
Managing.
like Remington Industries has been something of a flop.
It's funny you should say that, Andy, because I'm just about to launch a brand new product from the mind and the think tank of Remington Industries.
Are you
Isn't it
indeed?
time for $1 million ideas?
Well, let's see if I can click. In fact, you know what? Just to make sure it's the right one, let's get this technical difficulties on the screen so people can't see me browsing through the different windows. Let's see. Okay, there it is. Okay, when we come back, we'll see this latest Remington product, and then he's going to tell us all about it. And I dread to think what he's got to say. So, here we go. Mr.
I'm gonna
Remington,
love this.
explain yourself. What is this $1 million idea?
Well, it's the Remington brush fluffer.
Okay, continue.
Well, I've read that licking your paintbrush can be very bad for your health because of what is in some of the paints. And if you're anything like me, you just can't help but just lick your paintbrush and just get a nice little nib. But those days are over with the Remington brush fluffer. So you've got your model table, and of course, it wouldn't be right if you didn't have a selection of brushes and a water pot and maybe a palette.
A Remington water pot and palette.
Your Remington water pot and palette, but also a Remington brush fluffer. And simply moisten the tongue section of it, and it licks your brush for you. And it's
Is it
fully
motorized?
that would be the upgraded version.
The
So
pro version.
yeah, and it can be used for multiple purposes. It's just come to my mind. Of thought of a few, maybe personal things, but
Is it
for
kind of a sponge-like material?
I can't disclose that information, Andy, because that would be infringing on copyright, and you know how I feel about that. Because I've been burnt many, many times with my $1 million ideas.
Well, I'm sure
Anyway, let's
someone from Andy Industries is going to get over and steal the prototype, I think, and get this
Void
out on the
Captain
shelves.
Bazooka says brush liquor. Surely, by the looks of it, why is it a lady mouth? Or why not?
Why not?
Rotary action in the upgrade. Brush fluffer, bruffer, the bruffer. I think it's fair to say that people like it. No one's dissed this idea yet. What
Well,
about you, Andy?
I've seen at least a couple of people that didn't like it in the comments there. But moving on, let's brush straight past that. On
What?
to building a better Blood Bowl. So, the new Blood Bowl is on its way. And there's a designer interview on the Warhammer community, which we're not going to listen to because we don't have 3 hours and we don't want to get the video taken down. So, it's all very nice. Stats, pictures of the models, very exciting. But they've changed some of the rules apparently. So, have you played Blood Bowl in its original form?
Oh, no, I had downloaded the computer game for a bit, and I didn't understand what was going on and gave up.
Okay, I was kind of in that boat, but then later, years later, I did go back to it again and play a few games and get a bit more into it. However, I think that issue that you ran into there just didn't understand it. It was a direct translation of the tabletop game, and the rules were a little bit on the complex side, safe to say. So, it looks like, from the cursory glance over this article that I endured earlier, looks like they've streamlined some of the rules because one thing that caught my eye, so tackle zones. From what I remember, because I haven't played it that much on the tabletop since probably the late 90s, perhaps, but the PC version I did play, and I always found it kind of confusing figuring out all the different modifiers, so I kind of just went into each situation blind, not really understanding whether I was likely to succeed or not, because it was quite complicated. And it looks like they've simplified it by deciding that you're either marked or open. So presumably that means there aren't going to be tons of different modifiers stacked up on you. It's just like good or bad, which is a bit of a streamline as far as I can tell. So
Wildly inaccurate passes. Is this Blood Bowl or Rem's dating tips? Says Mickey Jam.
wow. Well, I don't know, because if you look at some of the other entries here as well, it could also apply.
Greasy cleats. Randomly select one opposition player that is available. Oh, you've taken it out.
Boots have been tampered with.
How does a snotling tackle an ogre?
Well, it's funny you should say that. It looks like snotlings are being destroyed by ogres right here.
They're noblars, aren't they?
Let's see how they could be, actually.
I'll tell you what, the new Blood Bowl miniatures are wicked, though, aren't they? You know, the halflings awesome. Snotlings look like great fun. But have you seen the new undead ones that are coming soon?
That looks like a skeleton right there.
They're so good, man. They're really good. I like the sort of jack-o'-lantern guys.
So now that Necromunda, it's been determined that it's too impenetrable due to the outrageous page background colour, the font. Is Blood Bowl going to be the next stop?
I'll have a go. I'll get a Blood Bowl team. I don't know which one. It'll either be halflings, ogres, snotlings, or these undead ones.
It would be a good time to climb aboard the Blood Bowl train anyway, with the new edition just coming out. You're not going to get left in the dust.
Oh yeah, but the Empire ones in the new edition look great as well. Not so keen on the orcs though, so maybe I'll give them to you. What do you think?
Well, if I got a free Blood Bowl team, then I might paint them up.
And you wouldn't say no. It's your favourite word, isn't it? Free.
Sure is. So that's kind of exciting. We might dabble in the world of Blood Bowl at some point. We'll see. Next, so got confirmation of the price for Jakob Bugmanson, and it's £21.
Why £21 and not £20?
Because they can squeeze one more pound out of you.
Why not £19.99 to make it just sound a bit cheaper?
They don't really do that, do they? They don't have
No.
99 at the end of their models prices.
They don't need to. Like Games Workshop doesn't need to do that. That's what I mean. It's like it's just beneath them.
I was about to use those exact words. It is kind of beneath them to do that. I think that's how they feel about it. It's not on brand for them, is it?
Yeah, because like psychologically, £19.99 just sounds like a lot cheaper than £20.
Okay, we
There
know
you
the
go.
price for that now.
I like this guy. If I collected Caradron Overlords, I'd have him. I would.
Next, so something I thought would be interesting to look at. We had a spooky episode last week, and GW did something similar. Had a bit of a spooky theme going on.
Oh, that's interesting, isn't it? That they copied us again.
Well, they probably did it first, to be fair.
Oh.
And they had a painting competition for spoopy models, and that was won by Manfred. Well, the model is Manfred, not the painter. See the painter's name right there. But that is very nice indeed.
Well, not spooky though, is it? It's not like scary.
Well, it doesn't really terrify me. I will agree with you there. But it is well painted.
Yeah.
And then
yeah,
down here,
exactly.
we've got some more. We've got this guy. That looks a bit scarier just because it's on the edge of a cliff by the looks.
Flipping heck. What is that? Like a Varangard or something? Like Chaos Knight?
It is fancy Chaos Knight.
Is he stomping on something?
It looks like he's
No.
trampling a Stormcast shield into the side of the cliff, perhaps.
Well, it's like cutting off your nose to spite your face, isn't it? It's about to, like, kill him.
It reminds me the Dark Crystal film.
Yeah.
There's that scene where they're battling. The monsters, the beetle monsters, are fighting against their mounts, and a couple of them go barreling over the cliff, fighting each other.
Right. Yeah.
Recall. Makes
That's
me think of that.
It's a great conversion, isn't it? This is.
And then orc or treat. So trick or treat with a pumpkin.
What's the treat?
The treat is probably that it doesn't kill you and steal all your teeth.
Is it a bag? Is it like a pumpkin filled with explosives?
I hope so.
Yeah, I love it. I love that miniature.
See which other ones they're showing us here. Some ghosts, pretty standard ghosts, but obviously top-notch paintwork. Then, oh, that's a bit too 40k for my liking, but obviously very nice paintwork again. And then, a gash. That's what we like to see. Not quite as scary as the old classic clown Nagash, but still potentially terrifying.
It looks like contour paints, doesn't it? Those blues.
Contrast paints.
Contrast
It does,
paints.
potentially there. But very nice, top-notch paintwork on all of those. November has a theme as well, apparently. Battlegrounds and terrain. Well, I'm sure we'll forget to look at that when the time comes.
Don't you want to look at the spooky Blood Bowl miniatures? They're definitely worth a peek, Andy.
I don't see any on here.
I think you'd love them. They're there.
I'm sure they're on the Warhammer community somewhere. But you know what it's time for?
What?
Everyone's probably second or third favourite segment in internet history. It's time for... Get your brains ready. Your eyeballs, because it's time for... What the hell is that?
What the hell is that? What the hell is that? Is it a chaos dwarf or a vampire bear? Oh, what the hell is that? What the hell is that? Oh, what the hell is that? What the hell is that? Only Andy and Remington, Andy and Remy, Andy and Remington know. What the hell is that? What the hell is that? Is it Sigmar Speed or Neferata's hat? Oh, what the hell is that? Oh, what the hell is that? Is it a mangled squig or a sorcerer's rat? Only Andy and Remington! Andy and Remy, Andy and Remington know.
Well then, what the hell is that? Now, obviously, you can tell what the main picture is there, but which miniature is hiding among the fingers of the green giant? I feel like someone's going to get this really quick and surprise us.
Do they have green giant products in America or around Europe, or is it like a British thing?
I can only imagine that it's got to be a worldwide brand, but I don't know that for a fact.
Well, if you don't know, he's like, it's tinned corn, isn't it? Tinned vegetables, sweet corn. What's in his hand though? Have we got to tell you what's in his hand? That's sweet corn in his hand.
That is not the miniature, though. There is a miniature embedded within his fingers. Parts of its body. We've got confirmation from multiple people in the chat that it's also big in the US.
Okay.
A worldwide brand. Interested Jesus, Fellwater Troll. Nope, there is not the Fellwater Troll. But you can see two of his fingers don't look quite natural. It's because, skillfully, By the mystical art of photoshoppery, I have implanted parts of a particular miniature onto his fingers.
Brad Jimenez says Bone Reaper something.
Nope, there's no bone reaping going on at all.
Dicey Guy says the chapel. Is it some scenery?
It's
Owen Lee,
obviously some kind of green skin, isn't it? To
Owen
blend
Lee
in
says
so well.
Gorbel. Is it Gorbel? Mega Gargant says hello, Cedar Kudu Khan.
It is
What a
not.
cool name.
It's not a mega gargan.
Okay.
It's something green, and they intend for it to be green. They released it.
Is it a 4-year-old miniature?
It is not. It is
Okay.
currently available on the Games Workshop website, and it is in the Destruction range.
William Matthews says Maw Crusher.
Nope. Might be. I'll give you a bit of a clue as well. The two pieces you're looking at may well be kind of arms and armpit, side of torso kind of parts.
Are they ogres? Okay.
Say right now, it's from an aura.
Owen Lee says Big Stabber.
No.
Will Matthews says War Chanter.
Well, how's about that then? Because, boom, look at that. Arms, the armpits of the War Chanter, skillfully transplanted onto the fingers of the Green Giant.
Wow.
Wonderful. And with that, so well done to William, obviously. Yes, Brad, check out the muscularity indeed. It's time for everyone's second favourite segment of all time, I would say. Which is, of course, Witch Coven. So while Remington furiously checks his notes and remembers how he's going to resurrect Andy the Ungor, who was brutally butchered at the end of the last episode, and I'm going to play the Witch Coven theme song. And there's no video for it yet, so we're just going to kind of dance around to it. Like...
Witch Coven, Andy the Ungor in Witch Coven, narrated by Remington Steele, the famous DM in Witch Coven. That's it, a Witch Coven, Andy the Ungor in Witch Coven, a world that doesn't care that Andy is a beast man who lays it all bare. Witch Coven, Andy's gonna get in Witch Coven. He's gonna get it every week, a sacrifice to Cain. He's gonna get it every week. Andy the Ungor in Witch Coven.
Well then, Remington, take it away. The stage is yours.
Okay, well, this is episode 3 of Witch Coven, starring Remington Steele as the narrator and concept designer, and Andy as our Ungor hero. Well, if you've joined us for the first time, the setting is in the mortal realms, and Andy is a hapless Ungor who has been banished from his tribe with a friendly Cygor, who who's upon whose shoulders Andy went for a ride and deciphered some hieroglyphs on the Cygor's head, and correctly figuring out the puzzle, Andy was transported to another plane, another realm, the realm of shadows. And just before he left the tribe, there was one chance at redemption. Not just redemption, but reunion with Uglorg, the Beast Maiden, who Andy has fallen deeply in love with, who is the daughter of Kimchi, the grey herd beast lord. So Andy has got to grow a pair of horns before he can return to the Grey Herd. Not only that, but he needs to return with a couple of magical things to prove his worth. One, to heal Uglorg the Beast Maiden, who is suffering from fits of epilepsy caused by a Jabberslife, which Andy brought to the tribe to show off his prowess, and unfortunately caused an aura of madness to fall upon his true love, much to the chagrin of the tribe. So Andy has to come back with, he has to kidnap a bride of Cain known as Malid and win back the favor of the tribe, and also bring back some liquid from a cauldron of blood to give to no less than the legend of the beast herd, Morga, master of shadows himself. So in our last episode, transported to the realm of shadows, they were confronted by a rickety old cauldron of blood, which when they spotted the Cygor and Andy, cackling laughter ensued, and there was combat. Andy instructed telepathically his Cygor to start throwing rocks and to dismantle the cauldron of blood. And unfortunately, Andy fell into the cauldron, and the boulder thrown by the Cygor dislodged the cauldron itself. And so the statue of Cain was animated by the witch elves, and in its fury chopped Andy in two. And that's how episode 2 ended, with Andy being dissected. The end. Game over. Or is it? Andy, roll a d6 to determine your fate.
Yeah, I've got some fresh dice here. It's a 4.
It's a 4. I'll give you that. Andy, a mist covers your eyes after the sharp but fleeting pain of being cut in twain. As you awake, you see a pair of eyes and a gnarled, crooked, wrinkly face. Around the face, straggly white hairs, a big bush of white hairs. Old makeup, you think, composed of blood, is around the eyes and lips and cheeks of this venerable, noble, wise, but thoroughly evil face. You are in the presence of Morgwin, the Witch Crone. So, a stranger comes to these lands and seeks union with the Coven. I wonder how I can use this simple beast to my own end. What is your name, child?
Before you know my name, know that I am no simple beast. I am Andy the Ungor.
Now, can you just say that in your own language? Exactly as I thought. This beast is nothing but a simpleton. Perhaps I can use this to my own ends.
You're not supposed to say that out loud.
Oh, well, that's what she's thinking.
Oh.
You don't really understand what she's saying anyway, because your intelligence is like 1 out of 10.
Okay, I'll keep that in mind.
The Cygor is nowhere to be seen. And Andy, this is your chance to maybe recommune with the Cygor. Perhaps it can help you discover where exactly you are.
Do I have my legs back?
You don't know. You can't feel a thing. You're put into some kind of waking coma. All you see is this face leaning down over you and dark blackness. Do you seek communion with the Cygor, or do you want to disattach yourself from that?
I would like to cry out with my mind and attempt to look through the single piercing eye of the Cygor.
Ah, an interesting tactic. Roll the dice. Your intelligence is 1, so you need to roll a 1 to successfully
Can I roll a d4 instead then?
meld minds.
Okay, here goes the d6. It's a 4.
To 4. Interesting. The beast seeks communion with a magical foe of ours. Little Andy, don't you realize that I too can commune with the beast lords of the forest? I shall help you. And she touches your forehead with her clawed fingers and presses them into your forehead. At one moment, it feels quite pleasurable. And then you feel a sharp pinching pain as she draws blood, as she squeezes her nails into your forehead, but you're helpless to do anything. All you can do is let out a bray. And suddenly, you see through the eyes of the Cygor, but you sense that Morgwyn has also communed with the Cygor, and you see through its eye. The Cygor stands frozen where you last left him, confronted with the cauldron of blood. Except the Cygor holds 2 of the witch maidens who were attending this chariot, and in his hands are 2 lifeless body, for he's squeezed them until nothing but dry bones and ash remain. But the statue of Cain is still animated, and it's writhing without purpose, writhing with its sword lashing out, and you sense you can control the actions of your Cygor. Do you wish to leave it to its fate, or do you wish to enter combat?
I would like to instruct the Cygor with the powers of my mind. I would like to instruct it to hurl these lifeless bodies at its foe and then charge.
Interesting. Let's see what your aim is like. Now, your aim is going to be rolled on the stats of the Cygor, which are remarkably better than yours.
Do I have 2 attacks then, 1 for each lifeless
Yes.
body?
Yes, you'll need to roll a 4 up to hit.
2 and a 4.
A 2 and a 4. So one goes shooting past it, and the second one hits dead center into the statue of Cain, and it kind of crumbles away to ash. It doesn't really do anything to the statue. You feel like there's something else that's animating this statue. And luckily, you're looking through the eyes of a Cygor, a magical beast of the forest, whose one purpose of its one eye is to see through the winds of magic. And you look very carefully, and you see that behind the statue there is a small witch who still lives, who is in a state of prayer. It looks as though it's she that is controlling the actions.
Well, with my Cygor-like charge, I would like to attempt to push this statuesque fiend onto Praying Witch.
A decent tactic. Let's roll on your weapon skill, I'd like to say. You need a 3 or more. 1 dice.
It's a 3.
It's a 3. So like a bull charging towards its prey, the matador. You bend your head down, well, not your own head, but the Cygor bends down. Its one horn goes shooting past the statue, who doesn't really notice you as it's flailing around, and you pierce the very heart of the witch who is commanding this iron golem. And a faint scream is heard, and the statue falls to the ground lifeless. Then you are transported back into your own mind, looking again at the face of Morgwyn, who nods. I think I may have found the one I am looking for. Perhaps, Andy, there is more to you than meets the eye. You like the pun?
Well, there probably is, because you'd need at least probably more eyes than the Cygor has to see both halves of me at the moment, because I don't think they're quite together.
Little beast man, I know your mission, and I would like to help you, but I have my own price. But for this to work, you cannot enter the witch coven dressed in a loincloth and in your current form as a lowly beastman, Ongor. I need to cloak you in a very real disguise. But what would gain you entrance and admission into the witch coven? You have 3 choices. Which do you choose? Would you like to enter the witch coven in disguise of a witch, a warlock, or a slave?
That's an interesting one.
You can roll on your intelligence, but your intelligence is, I think it's 1.
I would like to select Doomfire Warlock. My disguise.
Doomfire Warlock. Interesting choice. So you'll have some magical advantages. You won't be on a level of the witch coven, but you will be acknowledged as a member of the tribe, so to speak. An interesting choice. For this Morgwyn to perform this transformation on you, Andy, she'll need to perform a spell. And to represent the spell, we have 3 tests for you, Andy. Do you want to bring up the first test for our audience? Perhaps they can help you.
Hold on, let me just get the screen. Spots.
The first one is a numbers riddle.
So I haven't looked at these beforehand. So, okay, I'll let Mr. Remington read it out.
Oh, it's not a numbers riddle. It's a simple riddle. This is just to be able to perform the spell itself. Whether or not it'll be successful remains to be seen. Solve the riddle, Andy. I am a tale in children's minds. I keep their secrets and share them inside. I blur their thoughts into fantasies kept, like a canvas of art or a submarine depth. Though an illusion, it occurs every night. I give them a fantasy, I give them a fright. Nor good or bad, but always nigh. It's interesting to tell. What am I?
Andy the Ungor thinks that the answer is a dream.
Very wise for an Ungor. Correct. And Morgwyn whispers some strange, indecipherable words, and you feel yourself transforming. Immediately, you feel more strength and intelligence enter your mind and body, or your body and mind. It feels like this spell has the potential to transform you indeed. On to level 2 of the spell. Let's see the next puzzle, Andy. You're doing very well so far. Right. So you have 10 seconds to find the missing number. Go. Four, three, two, one. What is the missing number, Andy?
Well, it may surprise you to learn that I have discovered the missing number.
You're buying time. I like it.
And in fact, I'm going to reveal to you what the missing number is. Right now, it's 26.
26 is correct, Andy. So you have imagination and you have numeracy skills, numerical skills, both of which will be important if you want to access and get across the secrets and traps of the Witch Coven. It seems as though your transformation is split between 2 out of the 3. Will it be the warlock or will it be the witch? We will find out in our third and final test. Andy, this one is a visual test.
Dun, dun, dun.
Can you find the correct shadow to the image in the middle? You've got 1 out of a 4 chance if you want to guess.
I believe it is C.
Andy, you don't disappoint an old crone like me. I do thank the Lord of Murder for delivering you to one such as I who has been betrayed by the coven, but I will have my revenge. You'll find out what happens in part 4 of Witch Coven as Andy begins his transformation into a Doomfire Warlock. Join us next
Exciting.
time for part 4 of Witch Coven.
Bum, 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 bum.
There you go.
Wow.
What do you think of that?
I think that was getting a bit spicy there.
Andy loved it. That's
Remington tests are getting more frequent.
Talking of witch elves, apparently if you visit a Games Workshop shop, you get a free miniature.
Which miniature is that?
Well, this month it's a witch elf. I don't know if it's one that's been released before, but and the problem is that we're all in lockdown for the next month in England, but apparently they're going to save them up. And next time you go into a physical Games Workshop shop, if they haven't already been claimed, you can get your free miniature. So, don't know what it will be next month, but this month it's a witch elf, so kind of cool.
Exciting. Well, that's the end of that. So, you know what? I didn't really see too many suggestions for our main topic. Do you see any?
No, I think people were just captivated by Witch Coven, to be honest. They were just terrified and transfixed.
I agree. And what the hell is that was pretty spicy as well. Probably too drawn in. I'll forgive them this time.
Remember to like the video, guys. It's meant to be good for the algorithm. And also, set your alarms and notifications so every time Andy puts out a Andy and Rem show episode starring Remington Steele, you'll get notified, and that way we can get more than a couple of hundred views. Maybe we can get back to the 2,000 a week view countage we used to get, because the show's way better now. Come on, look at the artwork, Radbat Designs, awesome. Yeah,
This show has basically become just a complete spice fest over the years. And when you sink your teeth into this show, you know about it. You can taste that succulent, juicy flavour. But yeah, only 11 likes. That's very disappointing so far.
12.
Oh,
And 1 dislike, so thanks for the dislike.
probably Mickey Jenbury. But there's twice that many people watching, so I would expect, oh, the likes just jumped up a couple there. Nice. So don't forget to like, obviously. Don't forget to subscribe if for some reason you haven't. You could even subscribe to Remington if you're really bored, I suppose, and you want to watch some of his old, like 6 or 7-year-old content. And don't forget also to check out all the various links in the description, of course, including Redbubble, where we have a variety of merch. Witch Coven merch now available with that beautiful logo that you're looking at right now, in fact.
Yeah.
Get all kinds of wonderful items, coasters, t-shirts, bags.
We're definitely getting an Andy the Ungor design at some point. It's so good.
We won't be able to call it that because it will be taken down. We'll have to call it Andy the...
Yeah, but like we can do it as a screensaver, you know. Can't stop that if it's just like freely shared. So
But what good is it if it's not making me money? That's what I want to know.
It's notoriety, Andy. You've got to be giving more stuff away for free, you know, to get more like people in your thing. You know, do you know there's a lyric in Kanye West's new album? Not that I'm a fan at all, but he says, "I'm not a businessman. I'm a business man."
Well, it's hard to argue with that. Anyway, so everyone wants to look at the episode thumbnail again. So there it is. And while you're looking at that, I'm going to personally thank some of the top patrons who have pledged to the level that allows them to get a personalised thanks at the end of each episode. And I think they will tell you that it's definitely worth the price, hearing their names read out. And there is a certain level where you can get digital bonus content as well, including high quality files, such as the theme song, but not only the show, but also What the Hell Is That, Forest of Rem, and Witch Coven soon, when we get a full high quality, bit slightly darker version of it. I think Mr. Remington's working on at the moment. So definitely worth it, but here's the personal thanks. So, the following patrons are extra tasty, tender, succulent, and juicy. Special thanks to Graham, Kim, John, Eric, Brad, Barbara, and Guy. All of you, extra spicy. Mr. Remington, would you like to say goodnight to the audience at all?
Good night to the audience at all.
Excellent. On that note, don't forget to stay tuned for more juicy content. Hopefully Vermintide 2 coming very, very soon. So don't forget to wrap your eyeballs around that when it hits. And usual time next week for episode 135, topic to be determined. All that remains to be said now is good night out there. Whatever you
It's the Andy and Remington Steele show on your screens tonight. It's the Andy and Remington Steele show for your home delight. We're talking about Age of Sigmar and anything else that is cool. about